recording. So our purpose, our main mission with the NC Latino Community Task Force is to be the voice of the community and advocate across different sectors in North Carolina. Our three main goals are to be a multidisciplinary task force focused on Latino and marginalized issues, to intensively collaborate with local community partners, community members, and federal and state representatives, to educate everyone on the resources and any up-to-date news that's available. And lastly, to engage in our role as leaders and have consistency in our work. Oops. So this morning we do have two guest speakers, Michael Cooper, who is the Senior Director of Advocacy, and I do apologize, Ms. Banda, Nayeli. She is the Development. So a little bit about both of them. So Michael Cooper leads NC Child's campaign strategy. Before joining NC Child, he practiced law, worked with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, and served as Government Affairs Director for the North Carolina Association of Realtors. He also advises WEAVE, the Social Fabric Project at the Aspen Institute, and was a 2020 presidential leadership. He serves on the statewide Youth Advocacy Council that was appointed by the governor. Ms. Banda joined NC Child in February of 2024. She supports with grants and fundraising initiatives. Previously, she was a program assistant at the Hunt Institute and a John M. Belk Impact Fellow with My Future NC. Nayeli holds a bachelor's degree in social work from UNC Greensboro and a master's from North Carolina State University. She focuses on large-scale systematic changes for equitable opportunities for North Carolina's youth. And with that, I will pass it over to you guys, and I will start sharing your presentation as well. And thank you again for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Nayeli Banda. It's Naileni, however you want to pronounce it is okay. And I'll wait for our presentation to come up, but I can kind of get us started as well. So NC Child was established in 2014 following the merger of Action for Children North Carolina and the Covenant with North Carolina's Children. We are a statewide nonprofit specifically focusing on child advocacy on a number of issues. So that really does put us in a unique position to work on policies that affect the whole child, including health, well-being, early childhood education, family economic security. We do a lot of research and data on the issues affecting children and families, and we strive to be a trusted and reliable resource for policymakers and child advocates across the state. Our mission is to advocate for policies that improve the lives of North Carolina's children, and our vision is that every North Carolina child has the opportunity to reach their full potential. And so just a very high level overview of what we do, but yeah. Next slide, please. Thank you. So at NC Child, we believe that every child deserves equitable access to the resources, opportunities, and infrastructures that allow them to thrive. We are very firm believers that the voices of children, families, and communities are critical to development of fair policies, laws, and decisions, and a lot of the work we do involves that. We actually are going on a listening tour right now to hear from communities firsthand. And we're also doing a mental health mapping project in which we are going to communities and hearing from community members about the youth mental health crisis. So always making sure that we're centering the people most impacted in our conversations. We also believe that public policy is a critical lever for improving the lives of children and secure their futures. So although this was a short session, we did have a lot of policies that we were advocating for this year. I'm not fully caught up on which ones went through or not, but I'm sure Michael may know that information. But yeah, next slide. Thank you. And so again, we do this work through our research and data. We do legislative and administrative engagement, collaboration, and awareness. Some of our programs that we run are our Parent Advisory Council, our Youth Advocacy Council, and Child Advocacy Network. in which we have several CAN hubs. We just secured our 5th CAN hub. So we're in New Hanover, Wayne, Guilford, Buncombe, and Robeson County. And so Michael, I'll pass it over to you to talk a little bit about those programs and what they entail.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nailani. So good morning, everyone. Really excited to be a part of this task force meeting. And as Nailani talked about, we're NC Child, and we've been doing this work in some form for 30 years. And it's very important. Last year, we were very involved in the effort to expand Medicaid in North Carolina. And now we're very involved in issues like early childhood education and youth mental health. And we're going to get into the statistics and talk about those issues a little bit, but we do this in a number of ways. Nailani talked about the listening tour that we're doing right now across the state, hearing directly from folks. We have that Parent Advisory Council, and we also have our Youth Advocacy Council, which is made up of 16 young people from across the state of North Carolina, has Latino representation on it. And we've got our Child Advocacy Network across the state with various hubs in local communities, and we're always looking to try to grow that, build that. So if anybody has an organization that might be interested in being a hub, let's talk later. I'm going to put my email address in the chat box later, but I would love to talk more about that because we want to have a presence on the ground in community and make sure that we're showing up and we're hearing what's going on directly in people's lives. But so part of what Nailani and I are going to do this morning is we're going to dive into some of the research that we do and the statistics that we have, and really get into some of the disparities that exist in North Carolina that we need to address together, and that we'd love to continue to talk about and to partner with y'all in the future in the work that y'all do. So next slide, Marlene, if you can. So I'm going to start. So every year, NC Child partners with the Annie E. Casey Foundation to release something called the Kids Count Data Book, which is basically the compilation of all the statistics of issues affecting children. And it's broken down at the state level, and you can also look at it for your county and for your congressional district, for your municipality. I'm gonna put the link in the chat in a minute where folks can check it out and look at some of the data. But we're gonna run through it real quick. And so North Carolina this year, we ranked 33rd overall in the country for child health and well-being, which is not in the bottom half. And we've certainly got work to do. North Carolina's kind of consistently ranked in that area. And if you look at some of the breakdowns of the data, not completely surprisingly, a lot of the Southeast and the South in America tends to rank towards the bottom of that, and North Carolina kind of ranks towards the middle, being a mid-Atlantic state. And so we've got challenges, we've got work that we need to do. And these rankings, you can see them at the bottom. We are 27th in economic well-being for children and families, 24th for education, 33rd for health, and 34th for family and community. And this gives us a sense of how we fare and issues that we need to work on. So we're going to break that down a little bit. Marlene, if you can go to the next slide. So some of this, go back one. Sorry. There we go. Let's see. I think you might be going forward. There we go. Well, one more previous. Apologies. There we go. Thank you. So some statistics of note. According to this year's release of the data book, 58% of 3 and 4-year-olds in North Carolina are not receiving any form of early childhood education. They're not in any form of programming. That's the majority. And then you can see for Hispanic Latino children, it's 70% of children 3 and 4 years old who are not getting access to have that early start, to have that programming that gives them an advantage as they enter school. And so that's an issue that we're very focused on and trying to make sure that early childhood education is affordable for families and it's accessible for families. We can talk a little bit about the child care crisis and what's going on right now with funding. That's been a big priority for us in the legislature, but it's something that we're going to have to continue to think about. And obviously there's a disparity there where it's really hard to access for folks in the Latino community. Another statistic we're really looking at right now, the COVID-19 pandemic had a big impact on children. You know, there was a disruption. They weren't in the school system. They were at home. And that affected reading and math scores and how kids were faring in school. We're seeing that now in the data. The number of fourth graders in North Carolina who are not reading at grade level is 68%. For Hispanic Latino children in North Carolina, it's 79%, which is a very high number. The number of eighth graders who are not proficient in math, 75%. For Hispanic Latino children in North Carolina, it's up to 84%. So a disparity there and a really high number. And those are big indicators, because what those reading and math scores tell us is about how, children in elementary school are faring when it comes to reading, and children in there at the end of middle school are faring when it comes to math. And it gives us a sense for how they're going to continue to fare when they get into high school and they go on beyond that and get into their careers in the workforce and things like that. So we need to make sure that we're helping kids catch up and get back on track so they can go on to lead healthy and fulfilling lives. And so that's a big priority for us. Another statistic there at the bottom, the Latino community in North Carolina makes up about 10% of the state's population, but for children under the age of 5, it's 18%. So, this community makes up a growing percent of the population in North Carolina, a bigger part of the future. So that's a really important reason why we need to address the disparities, because this community is going to be a big part of North Carolina's future for years and years to come. And we want to make sure that folks have the same access and the same resources, the same opportunities as anyone else. Next slide, Marlene, we can get into a little bit more of the data. So some of the other statistics that might be of interest to this task force, right now, 17% of North Carolina's children live in poverty. For Hispanic Latino children is 28%. And that number actually got a little bit better, the poverty numbers, because of investments that were made during the pandemic. There was things like the child tax credit and other investments that came as part of COVID relief. And right now that's running out. And so we saw a reduction in the number of children living in poverty in the last couple rounds of data, but we expect those numbers to actually go up in the next couple of years because those investments have run out. The number of seniors not graduating on time right now in North Carolina, 14%, and then slightly higher at 20% for Hispanic and Latino young people in high school. The teen birth rate right now in North Carolina, 15%, and then it's a little bit higher at 29% for the Hispanic Latino community. And then children without health insurance, 5% overall. We've made improvement on that, but there's still a disparity at 12% for the Hispanic Latino community. So some issues to address there. I've got some other things that we can look at, Marlene, if you'll go to the next slide. So that was the kids count data book. And then part of what we also do is something called the county data card, where we try to take all these statistics, and at NC Child, we try to break them down at the county level so folks are able to see how kids are faring in their own backyard. We do this every year annually. We'll do a state card, we'll do a county data card. We look at several of these factors we call a strong start. We're looking at prenatal care and birth outcomes. We look at family economic security. We look at nurturing homes and communities, health and wellness, and high quality education. So that's how we break it down. Marlene, if you'll go to the next slide, we'll look at some of these statistics. So that is what our state card looks like. I'm going to show links. You can look at your county card as well here in a minute, but you can look at some of these statistics. This is from our 2023 card that came out last year. We're about to release our 2024 card here in the coming weeks. So we'll definitely be following up and make sure that y'all have access to that. But you can see some of the statistics there. You've got birth outcomes there at the top for young people. You've got access to prenatal care. You've got babies born preterm, things like that. You've got number of children living in poor or low income homes. Some of these issues you see median family income. So this gives you a sense of sort of how children are faring in the community and what we can work on and address. I encourage you to check it out. Look at it in your county. See how y'all fare compared to the state numbers here. Some positive signs on this one. During the pandemic, median family income went up. Oh, thank you, Melanie. Median family income went up and the poverty level went down. Children in homes that are food insecure went down because of those investments. But then you also saw the impact on reading and math scores and on graduation levels because of those disruptions. So those are things to work on. We're going to need to keep an eye on are some of those education outcomes as well. And we expect some of those economic numbers to actually get a little bit worse in the next couple of years as things go back to a normal. And that's the thing, it'll be a new normal after the pandemic. The investments are going to run out, but we're going to be dealing with new challenges because of those disruptions. So it's going to be even more important for us to pay attention to what's going on with children and families. Marlene, if you'll go to the next slide. And there I talked about, those economic indicators got better, but we'll be dealing with these issues long-term for years to come, especially when it comes to things like reading and math proficiency. So that's our county data card. And Naylani put it in the chat. I encourage you to check it out. And we're going to move on real quick to our child health report card. So we do this every 2 years. We partner with the North Carolina Institute of Medicine to release this every 2 years. The most recent one came out last year in 2023. And we wanted to report to you some of the findings because it's very relevant to what's going on right now. There were some encouraging statistics in it. We'll get a link in the chat as well for that in a minute. There are some of the encouraging things. Rates of tobacco, alcohol, substance use are declining amongst teenagers in North Carolina. And that's true in the Hispanic Latino community, but we still see those disparities. For instance, 23% of high school students in North Carolina report vaping, compared to 33% for Hispanic Latino students. But then, so, we need to address those disparities. But a big focus of this latest child health report card, and Naylani's put the report card in the chat for you to check out. A big focus of this was the youth mental health crisis. And I'm sure folks have heard about this. You're seeing this in your own communities, in your own neighborhoods, in the school system. The pandemic was a big cause of this, but we were already seeing some of these trends before the pandemic, and the pandemic made it worse. And so we're going to get into that. Marlene, if you go to the next slide. And so what we saw last year in this report card, more than 1 in 10 children in North Carolina, ages 3 to 17, had a diagnosis of depression or anxiety in 2020. And that was a 49% increase from 2016. And that was just in 2020, just when the pandemic was getting started, and a lot of this is getting worse. We saw that in 2021, 1 in 5 North Carolina high school students reported seriously considering attempting suicide. 1 in 5. And that was up from 16% in 2017. 1 in 10 high school students in North Carolina reported actually making an attempt. And that's something to think about. It kind of blows you away. It's very, it's tragic to think about. It hasn't always been like that. And when you think about 1 in 10 high school students, that's somebody that that's somebody from your faith community or your neighborhood, your family. That's reflected in the data. And when you think about it in that human perspective, it really makes you stop and consider what today's young people are going through. I was fortunate. I was a senior in high school when Facebook and social media kind of first started coming out. I didn't grow up with a cell phone. It's very different for today's young people. They're sort of they're constantly comparing themselves to one another and dealing with these issues that are contributing to the mental health crisis. And we've got to make sure that young people have the support and the resources that they need. That's one of the reasons that one of our big policy issues this term in the General Assembly is suicide prevention training in our school systems, making sure that teachers are trained and know how to spot warning signs for young people who are dealing with some of these issues, so they can make a referral to folks who are trained to be able to help. We don't want school personnel to have to try to diagnose or to treat young people, but we want them to be in a position where they can spot warning signs and make sure that young people have access to support and things like that. And we're going to be looking at other ways to address this mental health crisis. We want more funding for school counselors, more funding for school nurses, and things like that. And then also more programming, more positive ways for young people to have something to do, have a sense of community, not feel like they don't have a voice or people are paying attention to them. So those are things that we're going to be working on. That was our child health report card. I'm going to turn it back to Nayleni. What we want to do, we want to really kind of open this up and make this a conversation and not just a presentation. So we would love to hear, what y'all think about some of this and what's going on in your own communities and what we can do to work together to address some of these issues. So I'm going to let Nayleni take it back over, and we're going to hopefully have a little bit of a conversation as well.
Yeah, so thank you, Michael. So we just heard a lot of data, a lot of information. And so now we really want to take this time to hear from you all. Obviously these are just numbers, but just kind of going through the chat, you all are in different organizations, some direct service, some not. And so just, does this feel right? Do you have any questions on any of this data? And really, we're here to serve as a resource for you guys. So if there's anything else you want to chat, any new programs, initiatives that you're seeing out in your community that are working, like now is the time to share. But yeah, I'll if anybody would like to start, have any questions, any concerns, comments?
You guys are welcome to unmute or raise your hand or enter in the chat box, and we're happy to respond to the question or comment as well.
And I can just share while we're waiting for questions. So my education is in social work. And so even though I'm doing a different role now, I'm still very plugged into that world. Specifically, I did school social work. And so a lot of this, when we talk about this data, it's like I've seen it. I've sat in a suicide intervention with a student, and I was translating for him. And so all this data that we're seeing, it provides context, but to Michael's point, there really is a human aspect to it. So yeah, I admire the work that social workers do and teachers and educators and all the people in the school system, because it is hard work. And so just acknowledging that this is heavy material. So if, that's also okay if we're feeling a little hesitant about that.
Question.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Heather. What is the best way to get this information out into the community?
Yeah, so I think sharing these links is going to be super helpful. I think something that I find difficult is reading through a lot of this because it is a lot of information. I will say Ed and C it also does a really great job of like putting this information into digestible little bullet points. So I know for the kids count for Annie Casey, they just put out an article kind of highlighting the report if you don't have time to read the whole report. But really, I think it's going to be sharing these links as far as the data goes. And then I think the other part, and Michael, you can jump in here too, but it's just like having these conversations of like, I read this statistic. Like, do you feel like that's relevant? Are you seeing that in your community? Kind of what we're doing here, right? Of like opening it up for folks to share what they're seeing. But Michael?
And I would add to that, we are always looking for opportunities to come and present, particularly in person. We're going to all 100 counties in North Carolina this year in some form. And so we're halfway through the year. I think we've already been to about 47. So we're pretty much on pace. And if there are local organizations, groups like this, opportunities, I know that Nayleni and I came and spoke to the AmexCon meeting in Pitt, several weeks ago, and we'd love to do more of that. So if you have a group, a local group that we could come and talk to, we would always be up for that opportunity. We're also looking for ways to come and talk to local government meetings, so a town council or a county commission. If folks are interested in going with us to one of those, we can present some of this information to them, talk about how children are faring, talk about some of the disparities that we're seeing. So those are some ways. We're also always willing to meet virtually. If you've got a group or organization that would like to have us as a speaker for what y'all are doing, we're always up for that. But we need to share these messages. We need to talk about how children are doing right now, because it is different from when I was growing up. They are facing some very unique challenges that we need to make sure that we're paying attention.
Very much so. So after this meeting, could we speak about a time that you could come in person? Great, thank you.
Yeah, any other questions?
You have a shy group this morning. So something I did want to ask was, oh, Roberta, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I have maybe a comment. I had to step away for just a minute. So if you would verify for me some of the statistics that I did see and hear, it was primarily before COVID. Did I catch that correctly? It was 2020 and before?
So what we shared looks at some different data. So for instance, the county data card that we had, some of the latest numbers were from 2020. Some of the latest numbers are from 2022. The child health report card numbers looked at several of the recent years. So they had some data that was from 2020 that was the latest, some from 2021. And the stuff that we're going to be releasing later this year in our county data card, that's going to be from 2022 and 2023. But in terms of the trends, what we've basically been able to tell was that, early childhood education is in a state of crisis with affordability and accessibility. That's getting worse. The pandemic made it worse. Same thing for youth mental health. There was already some of these challenges when it came to youth mental health before the pandemic. And then young people being stuck at home and isolated, away from their friends, away from school, exacerbated those problems. And so we're seeing those trends get worse. And so those are certainly things that we need to deal with.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that for me. So just so you'll know my background, I'm a licensed mental health provider. I'm a medical family therapist. I work primarily with our farms across North Carolina. So any children that are on the farms, I will encounter through the work that I do. So I work kind of closely with the North Carolina Agri-Medicine Institute. And maybe more importantly, I'm a grandmother of 6. So my oldest 3, the oldest 2 are in high school and then 1 in middle school. So since the pandemic, I have noticed some of what you have already said. I am seeing that out there, but since the pandemic, because our school systems have had to get creative and just show up the best way they can, I have noticed the hybrid pieces have been helpful, at least for my grandkids I have seen. And they have good family support systems. But I am seeing with my farm families, children that I run into when I'm working with a farm family as a family therapist, the children are feeling very isolated and talking to me about even some of the statistics we know that's, as I think about the young girls that I've worked with that are like 11 and 12, 13 years old, a lot of concern about comparing themselves online. And in that way, I was hearing that. But then with the pandemic, there's been a shift to parents homeschooling. And our farms are isolated to begin with. So this double dose of early on, we had the comparison thing and the online bullying. And then on the heels of that, becoming isolated and still doing some online and still seeing some of that social bullying or what have you. But it seems to have been complicated by, so many parents having to homeschool. So I will be curious, interested in, as we get more data on mental health concerns of our children across the state, what it looks like now with this, at least what I'm seeing, this complication of layers of problems.
Yeah, Roberta, that's a really good point. And we're only now beginning to understand a lot of these issues and the role that smartphones and social media and the pandemic played in this. And it's going to take us some time to figure out what are the solutions and how do we address it and things like that. But I think that, continuing to have these conversations raising these issues, reducing the stigma of talking about mental health is really important. As I alluded to earlier, when I was growing up and I was in middle school and high school, there could be some challenging days. Middle school it can be a little hard, but when you went home, that didn't come home with you. That wasn't always in your pocket. Those conversations, those things. If you were being bullied or picked on or had issues, that wasn't constantly being reminded or coming up as a way that young people now are sort of they're constantly being part of these conversations and things online. And so it's very different now. And to your point, there are communities, rural communities that are, underfunded or things like that struggle with these issues even more because there's less access to resources, to a therapist, to a counselor, to somebody to talk to. There's less opportunities for community. If you live in a rural or a small town, there's less opportunities to come together, and community is so important to these issues. And I think it's important for us to kind of appreciate that these youth mental health issues are not isolated. They're part of a larger mental health crisis right now in America, crisis of loneliness, crisis of isolation. But the thing is that young people are growing up in that in their very formative years. And so it's tougher for them, across the board, we're folks have fewer friends than maybe they used to 10, 15, 20 years ago. We see those friends less often. We have them over for dinner less, but young people are growing up with that. And so we're seeing that young people have fewer friends than previous generations. They're less likely to date. They're less likely to go out and get a job than they used to. They're less likely to go and get their driver's license when they're eligible to get their driver's license, which is fascinating. So this is showing up in a number of ways. And young people deserve to have the same opportunities that we did when we were growing up. And that's why we need to make sure that they, have that, opportunity to go out and find community, find friends, build relationships, things like that. So it's incredibly important. And we need to make sure that we're addressing this now, because 10 years from now, it'll be too late. If you're 10, 15 years old, it'll be, you'll already be growing up in this and you won't know what it's like to have healthy, positive relationships and outlets and things like that. So we want to talk about this now. We're trying to raise this issue in our work, and we would love to hear about you. I know maybe sometimes there's even more of a stigma in the Latino community when it comes to talking about this stuff. It's maybe not as common to bring it up. So would love to hear about that, how that's showing up in your own organizations, in your work, and how we can address it.
Thank you for that. And I will offer too, I know the Agri-Medicine Institute is working hard to see if, at least with our farm families, which so much of these families are just in our rural communities, but working hard to identify therapists who do have a background in agriculture in some way, and maybe helping us therapists connect with one another with a provider support network of some sort, so that we can learn from one another and support one another as we go forward. So if anybody's doing work like that out there, I'll make Scott knows how to get up with me. Please don't hesitate to
Yes.
just message me.
And Roberta, I put my email in the chat, Michael@NCChild. Please, I would love if you would reach out. And Naileni is naileni@ncchild.org. We would love to hear from you. I would love to follow up and talk about how we work with farm families in the agriculture community and make sure that they have access and that they're a part of this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I mentioned we're doing a youth mental health mapping project. And so next year, I'm not sure on the date, but it will be like around April. We will be releasing a report about what we're hearing from the mental health mapping project. And so we're meeting with mental health service providers and those in relevant fields to talk about what they are seeing, and then releasing this report with recommendations, as well as our youth advocacy council will be also weighing in on that. And so this will be we'll have a number of policy recommendations for the General Assembly, DPI, and other statewide organizations. So thank you for sharing that. I think that is something that will definitely come up in our conversations as we go and continue this work. But yeah. Any other questions?
A
I don't.
question and or statement, I'm sorry.
No, you're
Yeah.
fine, Miss Heather.
So going back to the earlier mention about the social work and the migrant workers and other Latino students or children having the ability to come up and get together, and then the therapist or people who are assisting them, North Carolina and the United States, they have a social workers network where they get together and they do brainstorming sessions and so forth. Is there a way to, which I'm not licensed, but is there a way to initiate that to where there's a carved out piece for like the social, like just for LCSW, to carve out a piece that's specific to this issue and these providers who I think do need help, because there's not a lot of providers who provide and or understand the Latino community and the things that they go through.
Yeah,
So I
I
don't
think
know.
that's a really great point. I know, to my knowledge, As a Child has not been involved with the NASW, who I believe would be the organization to kind of lead that work, at least in the state. And so we haven't had any conversations with them, but that is certainly a great point that I think we should engage with them, because I mean, social workers were in a lot of different spaces. And I think to your point, I'm also not licensed, but I see the work that I'm doing as still social work, right? And so I think connecting that direct macro work to the micro, so the policy advocacy work to the direct practice that's going on every day. Like I think, yeah, that's a really great idea. So thank you for bringing that up. That definitely gives me something to think about. I'm not sure if anybody else here is a social worker and has thoughts on that, but that is a really good thought. Thank you.
And then are you guys tied into NAMI for the National Institute and they have a local one as well for mental health initiatives? Because I've seen where they have a little bit carved out, but it's very little, very, very little.
Yeah, Michael, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've worked with them. We've been part of conversation with them in the past, but I definitely think that's just something that we need to do more and more of. We've got to do this together. We can't do this alone when it comes to these issues. And I would love to hear from you, Heather. Couple other ways to get involved. So we're going to be here in a couple months. We're going to be recruiting for the 2025 cohort of our parent advisory council. So if you know of any parents of young children who would be interested in being on that council, we would love to have representation and make sure that we're hitting all the parts of the state. So please let us know, send us an email, and we'll be recruiting for our youth advocacy council. And so our youth advocacy council is made up of 16 high school age students from across North Carolina. We want to make sure that we're representing the diversity of the state. Right now, we have a young man who first generation American, lives in Mitchell County. I believe comes from a family that's working in the Christmas tree industry in Mitchell County, and so he's a good voice on there. But we want to make sure that we're really reaching out and touching as many communities across the state. So please, if you know of a young person, high school age, who would be interested, they are compensated for their time. They meet 3 or 4 times a year in person and then monthly virtually. And it's a good opportunity for them to build their advocacy skills. They are meeting with state representatives and state senators and statewide elected officials and members of Congress they're getting to meet with. So it's an incredible opportunity. So really encourage folks to check it out. And if you know of any young people who would be interested in being part of something like that statewide, do encourage them to check it out. Send me an email and we'll let them know when an application is open for 2025 for the Youth Council.
Okay, great. That's phenomenal.
Yes.
Well, with that, I want to thank you again, Ms. Bandon and Mr. Cooper, for joining us this morning and for the great presentation. Is it okay if we share with the members? Okay, awesome. So we'll be sharing this presentation with you guys. If you guys have any questions or any issues come up, please be sure to email us or email Michael or Nayeli, and I'm sure they'll be able to answer it. And with that, we are gonna another round of applause for you. And we're gonna move on next to our agenda, which is our upcoming events. So this week at a Mexican, we are having our consulado in Wilson County. So we're gonna be there today till Friday, helping families be able to get the paperwork that they need. If you have any questions or you'd like to contact us to participate or to have somebody that you know be on the list, please contact Bianca Perez. Her email is right there. Next, we have a town hall this afternoon at 2 p.m. with John Stein. So it's open to everyone to join. Our advocacy director will be sharing the flyer and the link to join. It is on Google Teams or Google Meet. So it'll be new for us, but hopefully it goes well. So yeah, please join us to have a conversation with him. Next, we are going to have a food drive in Pitt County this Friday from 4 to 6. And the next two things, we're going to have a obesity webinar on July 16th at 11 a.m. via Zoom, and a mental health webinar on July 17th at 11 a.m. via Zoom as part of our health initiatives. We are going to be celebrating our summer internships this 26th of July. More details to come. You guys are all welcome to join us for a lunch and to celebrate the accomplishments our interns have done this past semester. Next, we have summer camp for Pitt County. This will be July 29th through August 2nd. If you would like to register your kids, please contact Bianca. Again, her email is listed below. And then lastly, we are going to be having, sorry, a bilingual job fair in Wilson County on August 2nd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then next, I would like to go down the list and see if anybody has any updates or any events that they have coming up so that we can all be in the loop of what's going on across North Carolina. So first I have Angela. Good morning, Angela. We can move on next to Beatriz. Good morning, Beatriz. Next, I have Cameron Brady. Good morning, Cameron. Next, I have Carla. Good morning, Carla Cortez.
Good morning. My name is Carla Cortez Diaz. I am with East Coast Migrant Head Start Project. We don't have any upcoming events or anything like that, but I just wanted to share that we do provide free Head Start services for children of farm workers across 10 states. And here in North Carolina, we have, I believe, 9 campuses serving families mostly on the East Coast. I mean, the eastern side of the state.
Thank you, Carla. Next, I have Dee Culver. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm with the Greenville Police Department and also with the West Greenville Health Council. I just wanted to mention that on September 28th, we have partnered with the Black Alliance from North Carolina, and we will have an event called Rooted in Wellness, which will be at the 3rd Street Academy here in Greenville. And of course, from the PD, we will have National Night Out on October the 3rd. So if anybody wants to join us, please give me a call and Linda Culver at the group of this. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Next, I have Francisco Guzman. Good morning, Francisco.
Hola, buenos días. Good morning, everybody. I'm gonna put something in the chat. There is a coalition that my division is doing on July 18th. If somebody wants to be part of the coalition, they just have to go to the Zoom link that I'm gonna put in the chat on July 18th at 12 p.m. We are gonna talk about Taylor Plan and the new vendors that are coming to help for the Taylor Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Next, I have Gloria Smith. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Gloria Smith, and I'm with the Edgecombe County Healthy Start Baby Love Plus program. Okay, there I am. Okay, now you see me. And we work with counties, Halifax, Edgecombe, and Pitt counties. And this is a program where we work with moms and families. We work with the moms when they're pregnant and they have their babies up until 18 months of age. And we do encourage reading with our programs. And we make sure that from the time mom gets pregnant, we help her get books with the Downey's Partnership for Children program, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and where mom and baby can receive books every month at their home. And we encourage mom to start reading at the very point that she knows that she is expecting. And this program has been going on now for quite some time. And as I say, all three counties are involved with this. And we also work with preconception moms. That's women that have never had children. And we work with fathers. And we try to provide some of the resources that they need.
Well, thank you for joining us and thank you for sharing that information.
You're so welcome.
If you have any flyers or anything that you'd like for us to share in our newsletter, please send them our way. I'll put my email in the chat box.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Next, I have Heather Baker. I think I missed one of your events, Heather, so if you would like to share a little bit more about it.
You did. I am Heather Baker. I am the Education and Public Relations Coordinator here at the Mexican. And on July 11th, this Thursday from 6 to 8, we will be having a Parents United for Education assembly. And our keynote speaker is the new superintendent for Pitt County Schools. So I think that this is a marvelous time for these issues to be brought to light so that the person directly can hear it and absorb it. So I invite everyone to come out and participate. That would be wonderful. And again, it's this Thursday, the 11th from 6 to 8 at the Agriculture Center. If you have any questions, please email me or Marlena, and we will get back any kind of information with you that you need.
Thank you, Heather. Next, I have Jonathan Cortez. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning, everyone. Jonathan Garcia Cortez, the Outreach Assistant here at the Governor's Office. Just from us, our next pending event that we have is the Governor's Advisory Council for Hispanic and Latino Affairs is having their next meeting in Wilmington on August 15th from 11 to 2. I'll make sure to send you the flyer once we have it finalized, Marlene, so you can share it to the networks for Mexican. But yeah, we're very excited as approach that the governor suggested we take is to make sure that we're hosting meetings in different parts of the state. So this would be on the eastern part in Wilmington. But yeah, that's it from us. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. And next, I have Lisa Williams. Good morning, Lisa.
There we go. Sorry, I was
No,
having
you're
trouble
fine.
getting unmuted.
I know it takes a while.
I know. Good morning. I'm Lisa Williams. I'm with the Mideast Commission, and we have very much benefited and are very happy to have this group as partners. Resiliency and recovery are very important to us. We work a lot post-storm with raising houses and trying to get people out of flood hazard danger. But working pre-disaster is what's really important. The goal, our goal is to prevent it from ever happening or lessening the recovery that our homeowners have to deal with. So we're happy to be here. I want to introduce Cameron Brady is also on the call, and I'll let Cameron introduce himself when you get to him. But Cameron has joined Mideast, and we're happy to have him, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about himself.
So we can actually move on over to Cameron. And Cameron, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sorry, I was having issues earlier unmuting myself as well. But I'm here with Lisa at the Mideast Commission, helping her out with resiliency and mitigation. originally from Greenville, but here in Washington now with the Mideast. So happy to meet you all.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Next I have Phil Triplett. Good morning, Phil. And then next we have Roberta Bellamy. Good morning, Roberta.
Good morning. I think I kind of gave you the lowdown of who I am, and but once again, I am a marriage and family therapist, medical family therapist, licensed. I specialize in agricultural work. So anyone living or working on a farm in North Carolina, I work very closely with the North Carolina Agro-Medicine Institute to bring stress relief services and work with anyone else that is in this field collaboratively toward that end. And thank you all for the invitation and for the information this morning.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. Next, I have Y Luna. Good morning, Miss Luna.
Good morning. I have no updates. I'm just really a listener here from NC Pro and just take notes. So,
Well, thank
but
you.
I enjoy the meetings.
Thank you.
You're
I do
welcome.
want to call on the Mexican team. If there's any event that I missed that you guys would like to highlight, you're welcome to unmute. So I'll give a couple of seconds for that.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm the economic development coordinator with Mexicon. The only thing I have coming up is August 2nd, we have a bilingual job fair in Wilson, from 11 to 1 p.m. So that's a really good opportunity, to kind of network and look for job opportunities among the Latino community. So yeah, that's all that we have coming up from the economic side.
Thank you, Grant. So with that, I want to thank you guys, and I want to thank NC Child again for joining us this morning. Here's a couple of links and QR codes if you have trouble contacting us. We do have a newsletter that gets sent out monthly. And then this other QR code is to have the calendar link on your calendars, so it's easier to know when our meetings are and what day they are specifically, since they are once a month. With that, I want to thank you again, and I hope you guys have a great week. We'll be in contact, and if you guys ever need anything from us or the team, please be sure to reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions or collaborate with you guys in anything that you guys might need. So thank you, everyone. Have a great week.